Hi, you guys. This is Trish Agel Roberts bringing you my second episode of my wellness and transformation blog called Thoughts on Everything. And it is a companion to my traditional blog, which you can find on my website, which is honeybutterflies.com/blog. Honeybutter, FLYZ.com/blog. And the name of my most recent blog that I'm going to talk about today is Wisdom Woke Me. So in that blog, I talk about how I got the idea for my most recent book, which is my self-help memoir called Thinking Outside the Chrysalis, A Black Woman's Guide to Spreading Her Wings. So the first time, that's what it looks like. So the first time I was interviewed about the book, the interviewer asked me where I got the idea. And I hadn't really thought about it, and I told her that it came to me in the middle of the night. So I talked about that in my blog, partly because I think it's important to pay attention to our dreams, but also it's important to note that it's not like it was like completely out of the blue. You know, these concepts that are in my book, what I call drops, like drops of nectar or drops of wisdom, were part of my life. It just kind of funneled to me in that way in a dream. So I had to wake up and write them all down. At the time it was 10. As I began working on the book, it ended up where I had 12 concepts in there that I wanted to share with you guys. But what I wanted to do today was just talk to you about what some of those concepts are. So they're all in my book. The first one, the chapter of the book is called Heal the Past First. So the drop is really about healing. And the reason that that was important, and of course why it was first, is because, we really can't make progress towards our goal if we have not kind of healed what, people used to like to call the inner child, or whatever you want to call it. We have to get healthy, right? So in order to get healthy, we have to at least acknowledge any past trauma or past hurts that we've experienced in our lives, and look for ways to come to terms with those things. So it could be through therapy, but there are lots of other ways that you can work on healing yourself. So that was the first one. The second one is get a spiritual life. So for me, I was born and raised Catholic. I went through all the sacraments. To my Catholics out there, they know what I'm talking about. Up to, from First Communion through to confirmation. It never really rang true for me. And so when I was in my teenage years, I decided that I was atheist. And I was probably atheist for a good 15 years before I had I don't know if I would call it a traumatic incident, but I had definitely a life incident in my early 30s, and I decided that I needed to have some idea of a God presence in my life, and that was kind of when my spiritual journey began. But I would say the drop of wisdom there is not so much that you have to have a belief in God, but I do believe that you have to have a recognition that you have a spiritual self, that you are made up of more than just your physical body. And once you get in touch with that spiritual self, then you can find a lot of really exciting things begin to unfold in your life. So that was drop 2. The third kind of little piece of wisdom, I call it takes a village to support an adult. Basically talking about the importance of connection. So even as I speak to what is a camera right now, I know that I'm speaking to people who will hear me. So this connection that we're creating between you and me is important. We're sharing information, but of course there are tons of other ways that we connect with people, right? So it could be your significant other, it could be your parents, your children, people in a place of worship or at work or just whatever. The reality is, as much as we sometimes have this idea that we can do things by ourselves, or we don't need help, or we're so independent, or we're so emotionally strong, we don't need connection. We just, fact of the matter is we need connection. And life can be difficult, so if you don't build a platform or a network to keep yourself connected when things are good, when things are not so great, it makes it more difficult for you because you don't have those connections. So I talk about that, of course, in depth in the book, but that was my third piece, the importance of needing connection. And as I was working on the book, one of the things that I learned, well, maybe not directly research for the book, but I watched the Khalif Browder story on Netflix. And there's a point there where he was on solitary confinement for quite a long period of time. And there's a point there where they talk about international human rights organizations recognize more than 5 days of solitary as being torture. So that's just kind of blew me away. It's something to think about, that our need for connection is so significant that a lack of connection can be classified as torture. So that was 3. 4 was get real with someone, which is one of my favorites. I'm trying to play my hair back. I have a little pet peeve. So I think that our country in the US, I don't know about the rest of the world, has a real crisis of authenticity. So I don't know if it's all of the Instagram filters or all the apps, all the photoshopping, the social media. I don't know how we kind of got here. I mean, I have some ideas, and of course I talk about it more in the book, but I really think that a lot of us are struggling because we feel like it's not okay to be who we are. So it is important for you to be who you are, and it's important for you to figure out who you are. When I was young, my father used to always say, you gotta know who you are. And I used to think, oh my God, that's so amazing. Who am I? I have no idea, right? Like, I know I have a name, I know I have a birth date, I know my zodiac sign, I know my address, I know what family I belong to, I know what school I go to, but is that collection of data who I am? I would argue no, that collection of data is not who you are. So in order to figure out who you are, you have to spend some time with yourself. And once you spend some time with yourself, figure out who you are, what you like, what you don't like, honestly what you like and what you don't like, right? Not what your peers tell you or what society tells you should like and what you don't like. But I think that is such a wonderful exploration and personal journey, finding out who you really are, so developing that self-awareness, and then standing in your truth, like, okay, this is what I like, what I don't like, what I care about, what I'm willing to die for, just all of that. And then from there, developing qualities that you admire and making them your own, and developing self-love. There's a lot of talk about self-love when I think that we're kind of, what do we say, slicing bread before it's baked, because we're asking people to love themselves when they don't know who they are. And I've been there. So that was number 4. And number 5 is about anger. So in the book, the chapter's called Anger is a Lie. I learned, a lot of these concepts in this chapter from my study of Buddhism, which has been going on for 10 years now. I really had to come to terms with the fact that anger is not productive. And it doesn't mean that I wasn't a cheerleader for anger at one point, if that makes any sense. So when things didn't go my way, I used to think that the normal response was to be angry. Or if somebody was purposely insulting me or being racist or sexist. I thought that that was really the only place for me to go, which is to, let them get a taste, right? So what I've learned though is that my whole thing with letting them get a taste and me getting all in my feelings and expressing myself and everything, that all of that was really hurting me because I would really make myself sick, Like I remember I could feel the hair stand on my head. I would get myself worked up, and it wasn't really changing anybody's opinion about me. So there's a lot of talk in the book about anger. I am so much happier since I've learned that I don't have to be angry, that I can, I could even be outraged and then go straight to action without having to be stuck in that middle place of just being crazy. So that was the fifth drop or piece of wisdom. The sixth one is called Give It Away for Free, and it is really about generosity, but not just generosity as it benefits other people, but the whole book is really about increasing your joy and fulfillment and happiness and self-actualization in your life, right? So everything that I give you, it may help others, but it also helps you. Just the same way that releasing anger helps you be happy, being generous does too. So I started getting some of this from a book that I had read by Russell Simmons many years ago called Super Rich, where he talks about how, he had produced music and given it to DJs for free, and then he got a following that way. So if he had held all of this art that he had waiting for someone to give him a price that he thought was the right price, we may have never gotten like LL Cool J and Run DMC. So that really stuck in my head. And at the time I read that book, I had not published my first book yet because I was holding it. It was like in a lockbox, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I would just encourage you to share your talents freely, and know that by releasing it, it will also come back to you. Let's see, drop 7 is about detachment. If you've ever watched an episode of Hoarders, you will know that this shit is real. It's pretty unbelievable. And at one point it occurred to me that attachment to objects isn't very different from attachment to memories. So I don't know if you've ever met anyone who was always reminiscing, either, reminiscing good things or always remembering past hurts, and they were kind of living in the past instead of living in the present. It seems to carry over to objects too, where I love this mug, I bought this mug, but do I want to reach a point where I love this mug so much, you can't use this mug, nobody can touch my mug, any place I go, I gotta have my mug. We get stuck on stuff, but it's emotional. Like I might assign emotional qualities to this mug. This is the mug my mother gave me. This is the mug that I bought at a certain day or a certain place or a certain time. The reality, why it's important to learn detachment, is for all of us, there's gonna be a day that comes where me and my mug are separated from each other. So why not recognize that and enjoy my beautiful mug now, knowing that we're not always gonna be together. And you can apply that to anything really, because at some point we're not gonna be on this earthly plane anymore. We're gonna be someplace else, and I guess in the someplace else we'll be surrounded by other stuff, right? And other spirits or people. So that was detachment. Let me see. Drop 8 is about surrender and setting intention. So making a point of asking for the things that you want. And sometimes in the process of asking, we are actually figuring it out for ourselves. sometimes we want things, but we haven't even defined it in our minds yet. So there is a process of defining what you want, and then there's a process of letting it go. So that's where the surrender comes in. When you want things and you scrape behind them and scrape behind them, it just becomes a big, messy process. I think that our culture talks a lot about the grind, and it's almost like scraping behind things is a good thing. I don't know. I think you say what you want, you do the work, of course, but then you let it go, because the reality is you can only control yourself. You can't control everything else, right? So that's surrender. And drop 9 is about patience. So I actually almost enjoy patience now, which is a really weird thing, because I never, to me, patience was just the worst thing ever. But now, when I have to wait, I realize 2 things. One, typically I have to wait for a reason, and I'm not ready. So it's good to have that space to wait so that you can get ready. And then the second thing is that in that space, when I'm getting ready, I can do other things. So it could be as simple as, maybe waiting in line for something at the grocery store. I might be able to read a Kindle book or something like that, right? So I can use that space for something else. Or it could be waiting online at the grocery store, and I use that space to, get my coins together or whatever. And then of course it could be bigger examples as well. But that space is real, and the space is there for a reason. So trying to rush through the space, well, first of all, it's gonna make you crazy. You're gonna go back to the angry thing, but it's really not. It's not benefiting you or anybody else. Drop 10 is about compassion. So if you really want to be happy, you cannot benefit from the oppression or the exploitation of other people. And I know there are going to be people, people are going to disagree with everything I say, but I'm sure there'll be people who say, but I'm happiest at the strip club, or I'm happiest eating a steak dinner, or I'm happiest at the dog fights. I don't know, whatever you folks might be into. And okay, you could be happy killing someone too, right? That's kind of crazy. I think to really elevate, if it's what you're into, and I think that's what we're kind of all here for, you want to not hurt others and not exploit others. So that's what drop 10 is about, and I call it the trickiest drop of all, because a lot of times we hurt or exploit others without necessarily thinking about it, and certainly without intending it. But it's certainly a topic to explore. And drop 11 is one of my favorites, Work Equals Play. So that talks about living with passion and working with passion. And whether or not you are doing your dream job or anything close to it, we can all bring more passion into our work. And if we really can't bring it into our work, we can bring it to the periphery. So we can explore hobbies that we're really passionate about, or volunteer work that we're passionate about. There are ways to bring more passion into our life. And then finally, drop 10. In my book, I call it Float Like a Butterfly, because I'm sort of obsessed with the butterfly thing, because it's just amazing. really talks about freedom, and it talks about setting up a self-love, self-care practice that you can, take forward with you for as long as you want to, hopefully for forever. But those are the 12 drops. I hope you enjoyed hearing about them. Again, if you want to read my traditional blog, you could go to honeybutterflies.com/blog. And if you are interested in purchasing the book, it is available now on Amazon. You can also go through my website for the link. It's honeybutterflies.com, honeybutterflyz.com. And the Kindle version will be out August 1st. The Audible version is scheduled for October 1st. And I would love to hear your feedback. So reach out to me. I look forward to connecting. You guys have a great day.